Hey Saiko, are you ready to rebuild a dying ecosystem so that it's capable of attracting new life and new Pokemon? Then let's get building because we're reviewing Pokopia. In Pokopia, the world is dead. Well, maybe not dead, but dying. Well, maybe not dying, but deserted and left for dead. It's a desolate husk of a planet empty of humans and of most Pokemon. Why? Who knows? My assumption is the humans used up all the resources and ditched the planet looking for more, but it doesn't specify. And interestingly enough, whenever humans are brought up within the game, it's done with a kindness one might have for memories of a childhood friend. The humans are missed, and the remaining Pokemon hope that one day they'll return. Although dark in tone and set in a post-apocalyptic world, the game is about hope. It's about perseverance. It's about revival.
But there's some good in this world, Mr. Furl. And it's worth fighting for.
You play as a little Ditto who takes human form as a trainer and is tasked with converting the dry and dreary landscape into lush greenery to attract Pokemon and maybe even humans back home. Pokopia is a sandbox, world-building farming simulation style of game. You can water plants, terraform landscape, build buildings, and basically shape the world as you see it in your mind's eye. The toolset is powerful, but unfortunately the execution is limiting. The world is built by Minecraftian cubes which you can freely modify, but only a handful at a time. So while you are free to build the world of your dreams, it will take a lot of patience and repetition. The primary objective in Pokopia is to set up the environment so that it attracts all sorts of Pokemon to live in your world. To make the world inviting for your Pokefriends, you have to create habitats. Each one is unique, and each one has the potential to attract a different set of Pokemon. Some habitats are easily created by simply spawning 4 grass patches next to each other, but others are more involved and require objects like stools or tables to make the area inviting. The further along in the game you are, the more habitat designs you'll discover. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about attracting the same Pokemon over and over. I've logged more than 40 hours in Pokopia and I've never attracted a duplicate Pokemon. It seems the game is smart enough and kind enough to only surprise you with a new type or evolution of a Pokemon with each visit, which is great news for those who want to complete your Pokédex. Once your new friends have moved in, your next goal is to make their home comfortable and to keep them happy. This isn't too difficult to do. They mostly want food or toys, or a comfy bed or somewhere to sit. The best way to find out what your Pokefriend is lacking is simply by asking. They'll describe their most current want and you just have to bring it.
Just do it!
The happier you make your Pokemon, the higher your environment level increases, which unlocks more items to use and progresses the game. Overall, Pokopia's gameplay is slow but relaxing. There's really no time pressure to complete any tasks, or any hurry to please all your Pokemon neighbors, which I like. You can play at your own pace, get lost in exploring any part of the world you want, and not worry about neglecting any of your Poke brethren. That being said, there are some limitations I found that pulled from my enjoyment. Pokopia has a crafting mechanic that lets you build all sorts of items using the resources you gather while exploring the world. Because you're limited in how much you can carry at any given moment, the game lets you build a chest you can use to store additional resources or items for easy access. You can even build one of these chests next to your crafting table so you'll automatically have access to those resources when visiting that table. It's great. The problem is the chests aren't interconnected. If you're at a crafting table in one part of the world, but the items you need are in a chest a long ways away, you're out of luck. You'll have to trek back to that original chest to gather the items. It seems like a small complaint, but as the game progresses, the items you'll want to build along with the distance between your chests can grow pretty substantially. And it could have been easily solved by having all the chests that are connected to a crafting table magically share items. That alone would have removed lots of backtracking I had to endure late in the game, and would have made for a more enjoyable and less interrupted crafting experience. My next complaint is about the aggressive hand-holding within the game. I know this is a Pokemon game and I know the target audience is kids. and there's a lot to do and learn, so I'm not against being guided on all the major features. However, I swear I was a good 20 hours plus into the game, past the first world, and I was still getting tutorial-like instructions for the most basic of tasks. At some point way earlier, I feel the game should cut the cord and let us try and figure things out for ourselves. I grew up in the generation of gamers that rented games from Blockbusters.
Blockbuster Video, wow, what a difference!
Often without instruction manuals and definitely with no internet. You just have to figure it out. Now, I'm not suggesting all games go back to that level of hardcore. Also, I'm aware that the controls and features of today's games, especially simulation games like Pokopia, are far more complicated than the run and jump action of classic platformers. That being said, I do often wonder if designers of games and UI in general are contributing to the general dumbing of humanity. In my professional career, I've been in design meetings where if the user gets confused by the software interface, the takeaway is always that the interface is poorly designed. And it's never considered that the user is just dumb or lazy or maybe should try harder. Now for apps like TikTok or Instagram where user engagement is measured in milliseconds, each moment you force your users to think is a moment you might lose them. So in those instances, maybe that design instinct is justified, even if it's still a sad state of affairs. But I feel if ever there was software made to challenge users and purposely not hold their hands, it's video games, especially video games for children who have yet to have their attention spans destroyed by social media. I believe little kids in love with their Pokopia world would take the time to figure out the interface as long as it was designed well enough. It doesn't need to inundate them with pop-ups and guides and a million reminders every step of the way. Let them fall, let them struggle. They'll be better gamers and brighter kids for it.
They will race behind you. They will stumble. They will fall. But in time, they will join you in the sun.
My final nitpick has to do with the titular Ditto that's your avatar throughout the game. I think the premise of playing a Ditto that's transformed into a Dittoized human is fantastic. It makes for a cute protagonist, and Ditto's ability to mimic other Pokemon powers is a great justification for unlocking all the world-building abilities you'll get throughout the game. However, as it is right now, you'll only get new Ditto powers as the story progresses and unlocks them for you. But I feel it would have been more fun if you could simply mimic the main power of any Pokemon you befriended at any time you wanted. Perhaps Ditto could have 3 or 4 slots that each held a unique power, and once you learned your limit, every new power would have to be swapped in for an old one. Managing which active powers you wanted at any given time would be part of the fun. And then attracting Pokemon to your world wouldn't be just about increasing an environment level or progressing the main story, it'll also have the possibility of discovering a new, game-changing power-up. The same power could be even stronger if you mimicked it from a Pokemon with a higher evolution, thus promoting you to try and attract every evolution of each Pokemon with powers you like. Having each Pokemon be a potential source for a new and unique power would have made it much more fun to attract all the different types of Pokemon, because you'd never know if one might bring something cool to the table.
You never know what you're gonna get.
As it is now, the Pokemon guests are fun, but it's more like collecting trophies than anything else. But attracting a new Pokefriend could have meant so much more. Pokopia has a very charming graphical style. It reminds me very much of Animal Crossing, but with Pokemon. Which isn't a bad thing, but Animal Crossing isn't exactly known for its amazing visuals, and neither will Pokopia. The Pokemon all look and animate nicely, and it's fun seeing them all together at their correct, or as correct as I can tell, scale. But if I were limited to one word to describe how Pokopia looked, I'd say meh. It gets the job done, but for a series known for adorable creatures and a cute art style, I feel they could have done more. Pokopia is a fun game that mostly does what it set out to do. They wanted to build a sandbox world that you could explore and where you could interact with your favorite Pokemon, and they did. However, once you're past the excitement of creating your own Pokopia with your Poke friends, you're left with a game that's mostly fun to play, but with some glaring flaws. Therefore, I'm giving Pokopia a 3 out of 5. While the world-building tools are powerful enough to let you flex your imagination, certain limitations in resource management and block manipulation sometimes makes building your world feel more tedious than liberating. Also, while it's a fun idea to leverage Ditto's mimicking abilities to gain new powers, it's kind of a buzzkill that we can't just learn new powers as we want on our own. It's all guided by the story. With such a focus on sandbox gameplay, it feels Ditto's active powers could have been managed in the same spirit. I've heard people describe Pokopia as a cross between Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, and Minecraft. And I think that's a pretty apt description. You can create a little community for neighbors to move in, you can forage for food, and plant gardens and grow vegetables, and the environment is completely made up of movable cubes that let you rebuild the world as you see fit. Pokopia is very much a mix of those games, but I fear it suffers from the age-old adage, a jack of all trades but master of none. Its gameplay is a horizontal slice of those three games, but its depth, at least in my 40 hours of gameplay, does not go as deep as any one of them. And were this an indie game made by a ragtag team of dedicated developers, I'd have nothing but praise for it. But this is a game made by a multi-billion-dollar company for a multi-billion-dollar franchise, so I feel they could have done more. But if you're a fan of any of those three games and love Pokemon, you'll probably find a lot to enjoy in Pokopia. It's not perfect by any means, but it does pretty successfully capture the spirit and charm of Pokemon. I'm not sure the game itself would be as engaging if it were a generic Creature-topia, but since it's not, and it's full of the Pokemon we love, it's probably worth your time. But maybe wait till it's on sale.